The ego is designed to protect and provide you the opportunity to evaluate your desires as a reflection of your biological drive to survival and program influence over your DNA. Your DNA is the expression of life as well as the unconscious. But once humans became conscious, we learned of life alongside its dualistic partner, death. This created an existential anxiety and thus fear was born. What differentiates humans from animals is the ability to understand that we exist and the awareness of knowing that we exist. This projection formulates within and creates our ego, and we start to identify as our identity. This psychology is created to ensure that we survive, because we make risks every day, where in hypothetical scenarios could lead to death. This aspect of ourselves interacts with many other aspects of our brains, and dictates how we interact with the world, with other humans or animals, and ourselves. The ego is born to help us live and asks us how we should live our lives, what values we aspire to, and what boundaries we should not cross. Our identity and genetics are formulated by beliefs, our environment, our culture, and origin passed down to us and provided to us. But as we become more exposed to the world around us, we formulate our own identity as individuals, depending on what environment we situate ourselves in and explore, testing, and critically analyzing our beliefs, whilst educating ourselves on the history of our origins and culture. If we choose not to do this, then we will default on our genetics provided to us. By developing and growing into our identity, we bring awareness to our understanding of ourselves and the world. Knowing the ego is designed for survival, a critical flaw awakens, which from the ego's perspective actually demonstrates that it is actually working, and that is the annihilation of the ego. From a physical perspective, this prevents us from activities that can result in death, such as the fear of fighting a lion, climbing a dangerous cliff, or experimenting with poisonous foods. On the other hand, from a mental perspective, the same ego that helps us survive can prevent us from achieving what we want in life, such as making new friends, talking to the people you are interested in, or behaving confidently in a job interview. But when we evaluate the situation, none of the social circumstances are physically dangerous to the point where it could actually lead to death, and thus the ego's flaws are on display. By recognizing the ego's limitations, we can work with it to understand its needs and put it through situations to test its beliefs. The beliefs are as true and have as much power as you give them with the information provided from the surrounding environment. This is why the ego is closely attached to the non-conscious aspects of our brains. But we must test our beliefs to truly see reality and know whether what we choose to believe is correct or a phantom of our imagination. The momentum the ego brings into your life while surrounded alongside a society that consistently is telling you that your identity exists through your relationships, through your job, house, social media, likes and dislikes, keeps you in a state of constantly seeking validation with regards to your identity. And anything that goes in opposition of that, for instance an attractive person not being attractive by an individual, a wealthy person where a poor person does not recognize their value or wealth, puts a wrench in the system and gets their focal attention. This is why it's crucial to unplug, or at least take a break once in a while, to understand that your identity does not define your existence in reality. It is the collective recognition within a select society's values that provides you the opportunity to self-actualize your ego and validate your own life decisions. By bringing awareness outside the ego's perspective, puts reality into perspective, and gives you the chance to objectively evaluating your values, morals, and identity. This is very important to do because without objective analysis, you will live in an echo chamber, an intellectual matrix where the source of your principles and ideals may or may not have your best interests at heart. This perspective can be equally created to be especially true in the West, where capitalism is at the heart of the economic system and has grown globally throughout the advent of globalization tools such as the internet or trade. The sentiment is to create a value system by way of supply and demand. This is not such an issue economically, but can actually be beneficial. But socially, if your peers are consumers and not producers, they are more likely to harbor values of leisure lifestyles. Such principles and values typically equate to avoiding the hard work which credits merit worthy of accomplishments. For instance, taking a diet pill instead of dieting, bulking on protein powders rather than being consistent at the gym, or even gambling at the local betting center rather than educating yourself and practicing how you trade. The ego is a convincing liar because of its association with survival. It is closely linked to the intuition or the id, which is the part of the brain and our psychology that does not need to critically think or evaluate a scenario that is beneficial to us. But its productivity in the modern world has its limitations in the fact that it cannot recognize or understand human society's complexities. This is where the aspect of our psychology has been developed in order to give us a complete picture of our circumstance. This includes our subconscious and conscious mind. Even in spite of that, we can still be limited to our level of awareness by the level of energy, stress, and beliefs contained within our bodies. Knowing the mind can control your body, directly influencing your body can also influence the mind. With calm breathing, you can slow down your heartbeat. With anticipating activity in your environment, you can prepare your reaction times. This is where a person who has awareness of themselves and extending into the ego can actually benefit and live their lives by utilizing the strengths of the ego. The ego can be seen as central command post where the other aspects of the body and mind communicate in a synchronistic way to provide an effective performance. The ego was developed purposefully as a mechanism to understand the world around it and its associations to the world. For that reason alone, you can recognize that it must have had some sort of benefit for it to exist for such a prolonged period of time within human evolution and the development of human societies into modern civilization, while in many cases nurturing its own values. The ego is a mirror to our biological drives and houses a symbiotic relationship with our genes. Without the self-interest of the ego in play, we would have no desires, ambitions, or goals. The ego puts itself at the top priority, which is significant in a social world. Its projection creates good and evil and helps us understand what sort of world we see, we want to see, and what sort of world we want to create.